So I am glad that you guys are taking time to be here today for the Portrait Profit Show. This is Memorial Day. I mean, this is a day that we get together and we remember those who have given everything to help out our country. And so the fact that you're taking time to be with me here today just means that you really are taking your photography seriously, and that you didn't have some other family commitments, or that you're sacrificing those. So either way, you guys rock. I'm glad you're here. Uh, I am going to share my screen here in just a second because just in case you're not able to get it, I still want you to be able to see the handout. So I'm going to change the view here, make this bigger to 125%. Perfect. We're going to be talking about purchase considerations for professional photographers today. There are so many things. You guys know this. There are so many things that a photographer can purchase. There's some things you absolutely have to have. There's some things that you don't. There's some things you can put off. But I definitely want to at least get your mind thinking in the right direction. Plus, I want you to add up what this all costs, including the things that you already have, because I want you to know what your real investment is, not what's still left. I want you to really think about what's involved in a photography business. So you should be able to see that the cover right there and the first page. And I'm going to read this section to you, even though you may have it. But people come to me and ask questions about lots of different subjects. This is obviously one of them. But so many people over the years have said that a photography business is an easy business to get started. And they aren't wrong. But the less you know about business, the truer that is. The fact is that any difficult business is difficult to start. It's difficult to maintain, and it will have many difficult diversions along the way. That old cliche that it takes money to make money is true, because you must have a few things already in your possession before you can really be in a photography business. Some things must be bought before you begin. Others, it's best to wait. Some things will help you get things going better than others. And some items waste time and money. Some are essential. But when you're first starting, you probably don't know which ones you absolutely need and which ones you don't. This today is made for it's general. It's not it's written for independent, low volume portrait and event photographers. It can be expanded out to pretty much any type of photography, but because of how general it is. But it's not made for one individual. If you feel like you need some more individual attention after you've gone through this, well, then reach out to me, because I'm happy to help with that. But this is general. There's a lot of things on it, and there's some things that you might expect that aren't on it. And I'll give you reasons why I don't have them here, and I'll mention them as well. But what equipment, other items, and considerations that cost money does a photographer have to purchase to be in business? I want you to make a list. We're breaking it down into 6 different categories. You list the things that you think you need at any point in the business to start out this process. Then we will decide what things you need right away. This list does not include land. It doesn't include buildings or other specific things that you may need to, say, own a standalone business. So you may need to add that, as well as other things that are specific to what it is that you want to do, what you want to accomplish. List everything that you can think of, even things you already have, and the price of the things that you have, and the things that you still want or still need. Once you complete it, add it all up so that you know what it takes to be in your photography business. You may be surprised, but don't allow that to intimidate you, because you can do this. People have done it before. You can do this. So let's move right into the gear that you might need. I think the most obvious is you're going to need a camera. Now, what kind of camera do you need? It depends on what it is you're trying to accomplish, what it is you're trying to do. It's possible that you need a cell phone to do the kind of work you do. That's possible. Unlikely, but possible. I think you need a cell phone with a camera, period, even if it's not the right tool, because there's good marketing purposes for it. But as far as a camera, what do people spend on cameras? It depends on what it is they're trying to do. Do you know that cameras come in small, medium, and large? You can imagine that a cell phone's in the small category. Yep, it is. But do you know that what most people consider the largest, the full frame DSLR, digital single lens reflex, or mirrorless, the largest of those is about that size, like that. It's still in the small category. There's a medium format and a large format. Medium format starts at about 2.5 to 2 1/3 times the size of the largest small. And then the large format starts out at 4 by 5 inches. So it's really big, but it depends on what it is you're trying to accomplish as to what's the right tool. I mean, if you were to go to a big tool store, Home Depot, Lowe's, if you were to go in there, you would probably, let's say you needed a hammer, you'd go in there and you'd see a ton of different types of hammers, not just one. And it's not just the size and the weight that are different. There's a whole lot of different things that you have to choose from. Which is the right hammer? It depends on the type of job you want to do. Same thing applies to all the tools in photography. What's the right one for you? And in a general class, of course, I can't answer what is the right one for you, but this is a consideration that you've got to take. So a camera. For most portrait photographers, a good a crop sensor will be fine in most situations, but a good full frame is what you're after. And these will start in the 2,000 range and go up to maybe 6,000 for the most part. There are some that go up quite a bit more, but for the most part, they're in the $2,000, $6,000 category. So that's for most people. That's where most will find. And then a backup camera. If your camera is not working for some reason, and this happens every once in a while, I have used my backup cameras. Not often, but I have. I think you should have backups for all your equipment. But if you're starting off, you won't be able to afford to have backups for all your equipment. But at some point, that's the goal, backup. Lenses, man, there's so many different types of lenses. But again, these are just tools. You choose the tools that are the right ones for you. So write down the ones you feel you're going to use. Again, if you need additional help with this, I can help. There's also YouTube videos. There's all kinds of things to be able to research what kind of tools are the right ones for you. But I don't recommend you go into like a Facebook group and saying, all right, I'm looking to buy a new lens. What's the best lens? Because the people answering the questions will answer that based on their experience, what they feel is right for them. And they think because it works for them that it's going to work for everybody else. These are tools. It would be going to the tool store and saying, man, I really like screwdrivers. I think everybody should buy screwdrivers. Right now, I mean, go in and buy one. Doesn't matter if you have some already, go buy screwdrivers. That's silly. You go into the tool store and you get whatever it is that you need. Now, it's not just because it's good that you buy it. Everything in the store is good. You don't need everything in the store. You get the ones that are the right ones for you right now. So you'll have to define that for you. Lighting, accessory flashes, strobes. There's a lot of different types of lighting. There's flat panel lighting. There's lights that flash. There's speed lights that connect to your camera that could connect to something off of your camera, a stand. There's the light modifiers that I realize is now 3 down, but it should be right up next to lighting that you're going to need with reflectors, umbrellas, soft boxes. Whatever it is that you feel like you're going to need. You will have to research this if you don't know. Wireless trigger. You want to be able to trigger this wirelessly. If you've got speed lights, then you might be able to connect in a different way, but you need something without wires. There's ways to tether it. There's ways to wire it, but they become a pain. So wireless trigger. Stands to hold all whatever you've got. Your lighting, you need to put it up on a stand. It needs to be sturdy. You don't want the cheap ones that are going to blow in the wind. And if you have that as a concern, well, then you need to buy sandbags. And I think you should do that anyway. Because no matter how good the stand is, how sturdy it is, there is wind that's strong enough to blow it over. So sandbags. Or you could just get some plastic grocery bags and put rocks in it and hang it from the bottom of your stand or from the side of your stand. And that works also. Tripod. One of my favorites is Manfrotto. And the reason is because it's kind of like the common, you're going to see this brand all over. It's sturdy for the most part. They have the travel pods I don't recommend, but they're good, sturdy, and they are an acceptable price. There are some that are really, really high, and they're really, really good, but most photographers don't need those. There are instances where you absolutely do. But Manfrotto has a good lineup. If you like a lightweight, maybe you go with the carbon fiber, but I like it to be a little bit heavier, so I go with aluminum. And I use black because I don't want that to reflect I don't want the aluminum being reflective. So I usually get a black tripod. So whatever type of tripod you need. Also consider its sturdiness. We are talking about its sturdiness, but also consider the height that it goes. There are some tripods that are kind of short, and if you're tall, you're going to be frustrated with a short one. Also, as you get it higher and higher, it becomes less stable, and so you want one that's tall already, so it becomes less stable when it's higher than you even need it. Tripods. Next one I want you to consider is the bags, the cases, the things you carry your expensive stuff in. If you have a whole bunch of stands and tripods, do you really want to carry them, just walk in like this with them? No, you want to have a bag to put it all in. I carry my camera and speed light and a handful of other things in a Pelican case. I just like the sturdiness of the Pelican case. So I don't have a camera bag, but most people do. Some type of bag. It could be a messenger bag or a backpack, whatever is appropriate for what it is that you do. If let's say that on the rare instance that there's somebody in here who enjoys mountain biking, if you want to take your camera with you, I don't recommend a Pelican case. It's going to be a real pain. But a backpack might be the right thing, or a sling might be the right thing. A backpack and sling, they're very similar. It's just sling has one and it kind of goes around. It's simple to get into, and it's usually much smaller than a backpack can be. Memory cards and a memory card holder. So memory cards, everybody does memory cards differently. I have seen several people that and I think this is odd, but I have seen several people that buy memory cards every single time they fill them up, rather than clearing their cards. I get it. If that's what you want to do, fine, do that. But I clear my cards. I use the same ones over and over and over. But I do have a camera, a case. I'll show a Pelican case too, but it's a little bitty tiny case that I have my extra cards in. I've got 2 slots in my camera, and so I have one that I have cards in both, and I have one that records JPEG and one that records RAW. And for the most part, I'm only using the RAW, but and I've wind up just deleting those JPEGs. But still, I have them as at least as a backup. Backgrounds. Clearly, not everybody's going to need backgrounds. If I were to guess, Jack Smith doesn't need backgrounds. Maybe to display his work, he might have a background when he's displaying his work, but I'm assuming that he just doesn't have a need for backgrounds. And maybe you're photographing the kids and grandkids and other extended family. Maybe you do that, but I'm just picturing you not having a big need for the background. Although I do like the background that you're in front of right now, Jack Smith photography with that big bear. That's awesome.
Yeah, it comes in handy for the grandkids.
Yeah, I can imagine that it would in that case. That's backgrounds and any props that you might need. And props is very specific to what you could use, what you could need. When you're photographing people, you can imagine that props could be an appropriate tool. It isn't necessarily, but it could be. If you're photographing newborns, newborn photographers often have quite a few props. They've got baskets and they have blankets and different things that they can use in order to what they feel enhance that photograph. That's their goal, to enhance that photograph. So whatever appropriate props you may have, and you may have none. There's some categories in this list you'll have nothing listed, and that's fine. That's great. Extra batteries. and chargers, man, running out of battery power, that would be really frustrating. So just don't allow it. And besides, the price of batteries has come down so much. You know, when I first switched to digital, that was February of 2002. Uh, Extra batteries, crazy expensive. Chargers, incredibly expensive. In fact, the first camera I switched didn't have rechargeable batteries, and it went through batteries like crazy. I'd photograph in a wedding, I'd go through at least 2 sets of batteries, and it had 3 different types of batteries on it. It had a CR2, uh, double A's, and one of those round nickel shaped batteries, and I never had to change that one. But I went through batteries like crazy on that first one. But these things are, you know, memory cards cheap, battery cheap. By the way, those memory cards, they were $400 a gig then. And so if you had let's say well, the largest you could get is a 1 gig card at that time. It was $400. $400 for a 1 gig card, and I had 4 of them, so $1,600 for 4 1 gig cards. You can't even buy a 1 gig card anymore. What size cards do you guys have?
I've got 128.
128. Yeah.
Yeah, I like them big in case I do video.
Yes.
It up really quick when you start doing video.
That's the truth. Yeah, totally agree with that. Let's see. The wireless shutter release switch with a digital timer. Again, there's things in here you may want, things you might not want, but the wireless switch, if you can get just a cable release, but which means that you can trigger the shutter, and you can do that with just a one little thing with a one little button on it. But you can get some that have a whole lot more stuff depending on what you photograph. If you want to photograph the Milky Way, you're going to want to get that trigger, but you're also going to want to get this little mount that goes between your camera and the tripod to move your camera against the turn of the earth so that things remain still for longer exposures. So yeah, there's tools, and I'm not listing something like that, but you may have an interest in it. By the way, on Wednesday, we're going to have a class, another free one, on photographing at night. So that's Wednesday at 7:30 Central Time in the evening. And this photographer lives in Colorado, but she's going to be talking about night photography settings to photograph things like the Milky Way, and also light painting. She's going to be talking about both of those things. Again, that's Wednesday. That's this coming Wednesday at 7:30. And let's see, let me put that in chat so you know. By the way, when I have my screen share on, it doesn't show me chat anymore. So I just now realized that 2 of you asked a question, or okay, Steve said a 128, just answer. But Francis asked about a pistol grip. If you like that kind of tripod, absolutely. Yeah, those are good. There's the pistol grip that's here in front, and there's the ball grip that's here on the side. But they work effectively the same. But whatever it is that's appropriate for you, whichever you find best for the kind of work that you do. All right, I said I was going to get you that address. So let me do that real quick. And I have to move a couple things away before I can do that. There it is. All right, so I'm copying that address right now, and I'll put that in chat so that you can get more information on the night photography class on Wednesday at 7:30. There you go. So look at your chat and you'll see that there. So that night photography class is Wednesday at 7:30 and it's free. And that's put on by, I don't know if you guys have heard of the Hiking Mermaid in Colorado. If you haven't heard of her, you'll like her. She's got an interesting energy about her. Oh, and she has rainbow colored hair. So I don't know if that's a draw or not, but it's definitely something that stands out about her. I'm going to put that one more time in the chat. So that's night photography class. That's this Wednesday at 7:30. But just click on that link so you can get additional information. Oh, we lost you, Mal, but it looks like you're back. Cool. Glad you're back. All right, so that was that. So back to the, oh, I guess I didn't say filters. So filters, there's 3 filters that I think matter anymore. There's so many different filters. If you learn photography pre-digital, there were hundreds, if not thousands, of different filters that you had to learn. It's great that we don't have to learn those things anymore and the differences between them. But if you're doing black and white photography and you create in black and white, then I definitely recommend that you learn how to use filters. However, the software is so good on manipulating black and white images in Photoshop and other software programs, Lightroom and others. I don't actually recommend that you create in black and white any longer. I did for a little while, but man, it's so easy and you've got so much more leeway in the software than you do doing it yourself. And so, if you want to do it that way, great, and get to know the filters. Otherwise, do it in Pulse if you're doing black and white. But as far as filters that matter for everybody, there's 3 UV filters, polarizing filters, neutral density filters. And I'm not going to give you a class on those, but those are the 3 that I recommend. And as far as price on those, if you see them under $30, please stay away. There's something wrong with them. The manufacturers who create those ultra cheap products have cut corners in order to make it ultra cheap. And they know that there's a market for it. That's the only reason why they're doing it, because they know that there are those out there that will see that price and make their decision based on price. Please don't buy those. They have their place. I'm not saying they shouldn't exist. They should. But I don't want you guys to wind up with them. There's problems you don't want to deal with. So I'm thinking that the $50 and plus and under 150, so between 50 and 150 for your 3 filters. Now I say 3. If you get a neutral density filter that's in steps, you have to buy multiple, but you can also get them variable. There's variable neutral density filters available. And again, it's not a class on how to use those or what they do, so I'm not getting into specifics on that. But there's a wide range of price, but I like the 50 to, and my UV filter was about 80. My polarizer was probably 120, and my set of neutral density filters was about 120. But I also use a different type on those. I use the kind that has the mount that's on the outside of the lens, and there are square or rectangle filters that go into it. And I just put them in and pull them out rather than screw them on. But that's a different system. That's a different class, I suppose. But you're welcome to do that. But filters are still important. The UV filter, the polarizer, and the neutral density. With neutral density, it gets a little bit, you make it darker. So it's like sunglasses for your camera. To collect more time rather than more light.
I ran into a case this weekend where I was shooting a model outside in Austin and was using high-speed sync and thought I'm covered. I could go up to 1/8,000th of a second, but it was too bright for that. And so now I know I need a neutral density filter in order to get it below the 1/8,000. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I learned the lesson the hard way.
Yeah. Yeah, the neutral density filter is one of those things where I think a lot of people don't realize it, but once they do realize its purpose, they feel like they have to have that particular tool in their toolbox. And it's only for outdoor photography. There's not any reason for indoor because you got more control over the lighting. So really, really bright environments when you're trying to collect more time. So photographing a waterfall is a good example. photographing a Ferris wheel during the day. You know, you'd think about Ferris wheels at night, where you've got the lights going out the spokes. And if you do that long exposure, you've got those concentric circles. Oh, that's so cool. But you can do the same thing during the day. The problem, so when you've got those concentric circles at night, it's because you had a long exposure that caused that to happen. That same long exposure during the day, you wind up with the most beautiful white rectangle you've ever seen, because you won't get anything. You'll collect too much light. So therefore you've got to reduce that amount of light in order to get it. And there's lots of different things you can do. You can make people disappear with a neutral density filter. So there's all kinds of cool stuff. Okay, that was too much. Don't want to go there, but you can.
Yeah.
It's super
Well,
cool.
I was shooting at f2.0, and I could have gone to 2.8 or higher, but I was trying to blur the flowers in the background.
Mhm.
So that's the reason why, normally you
That's a
wouldn't.
perfect use of it.
Yeah.
In other instances, you could just raise that a larger numbered f-stop. But if your goal is to blur the background, you can't blur the background with those large numbered f-stops. So yeah, you didn't have a choice. You needed something to reduce the amount of light coming in. Perfect.
I put her in the shade under a tree with the flowers behind her.
That works.
Yeah.
Perfect. Good. So the next section here. Now, you guys probably have other gear that you need to buy, additional things that are specific to what you do. So definitely, take those things into consideration. Put those on your list. You may need a separate page to make your list. That's fine. But then put down the price. Again, even if you already have the item, put down the price that it would take to, say, replace it, or how much you paid for it. Put that price in there, because I want you to add these things up. I want you to actually know what the real amount is. Now, if someone says, what's it, how much money does it take to invest in the business if you were to do it right? You'd have the answer for them. At least from the way you do business, not the answer for everybody, but the way you do it, the way that you're most knowledgeable in. Now we're moving on to digital, online, and software. So again, some of these things you need, some of these things you won't need. If you need a domain name, and a lot of photographers do, then there's a cost associated with that. So most domain names are very inexpensive. You do pay for them annually, but then you've got hosting fees, because it's not just a matter of having the domain name. You also have a website. So you've got to build the website. How much does it cost to do that? You can do it yourself for free on several different platforms, but most of them have some kind of a hosting fee or you may pay someone to do it. Whatever those costs are, whatever you think they're going to be, you may have to do some research, but please put that amount in if you feel you're going to be needing that. So hosting fees can be relatively inexpensive. They can also be very expensive. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Cloud backups. This is where your photographs go in order to make sure that nothing happens. Because if you were to lose your hard drive, man, if you don't have that stuff backed up, how's it going to make you feel? Not good. So make sure that we have that stuff backed up, and cloud backup's the way to go. Now, something that I also like to do is a NAS, and I'm going to be talking about that here in just a little bit, because that's equipment, but it's not photography, so it's in a different category, and that's a network accessible storage. I'll come to that. But as far as digital and online, cloud backing up, and have it on auto backup, where you're not having to remember to do anything. It's that set that way as their auto setting, their default setting. You can easily change it to do it yourself. Don't. Keep it on the auto. Have it set up where it's downloading your stuff either constantly or at a time where it's convenient, where you're not even on, but you're connected to the internet for that cloud backup. The next thing is photography software that you may need. So this is and I'm thinking the digital enhancement, the digital manipulation. So Photoshop, Lightroom, those are the standards, but there's a ton of them out there. Whatever ones you feel you're going to need, whatever you feel is best for the type of work that you do. It's easy for me to mention Photoshop and Lightroom simply because everybody's heard of it, and it is the ones that are sold the most, but it is not the only thing out there. It may be the best for what you're doing. It may not be. So make sure you do your research. But I personally do use Photoshop and Lightroom, and it's not a matter of which is better. These tools are overlapping, but you need both of them. So I'm using Lightroom for lightweight artwork, retouching, but I use it. The main thing I'm using it for is its ability to organize my photographs. I can easily organize within. So you need some kind of an organization software program in addition to being able to manipulate in whatever way you need to. It could be just as simple as adding a watermark, but whatever it is that you choose to do. And then Photoshop for some more extensive artwork, layers and different things that you may choose to do. But whatever type of photography software. Now, this also could mean that you've done add-ons for your Lightroom, for your Photoshop, or for others. So photography software. Now, this does not include the studio management software and that kind of thing, because I have that in the next category, the other software, studio management, database, bookkeeping, like QuickBooks, whatever it is that you use. Make sure you're thinking about those, write those things down and put the price. So I did make those squares a little bit larger because you may need a little bit extra space, but then again, you might just put this on your own sheet of paper and take up however much space you want. Next one is a logo designer. You may or may not need that. If you do, I put a couple of options in there, 5rr.com, very inexpensive, but there's one little problem, and that is it may not be exclusive to you. And when it comes to a logo, you kind of want to make sure that that's the case. So 5RR might be the right tool. It might not, but they have a lot of cool stuff. But Upwork, I would say, is the upgraded version of 5RR, Upwork. So visit both, choose the one that's the right one for you if you need that particular tool. By the way, with both of those, there's a whole lot more stuff than logo design that they do. A lot more stuff. You'll be surprised at all the cool stuff that can be done on these two websites. So anything else that you need, add that to your list on the digital, online, and software page. So that's the second one. Now we're moving into the third category, and that is memberships. And I'm going to one more time, I'm going to put in the chat the handout that we have. So just in case you need it, it is sitting almost now. It's uploading again. So it's uploading to chat. So if you have the ability to download the handout, it's there now. That way you can follow along what we're doing or just watch it on the screen. The next thing is memberships. I definitely recommend that you surround yourself with other people who like to do what you do, because this is beneficial to us. We don't know everything. We're very well aware we don't know everything. And the people that we know don't know everything either, but there's some pieces of information they do. And you can benefit from that by putting yourself into these. Now, something like the Professional Photographers of America, that is a great group. And it is all different types of photographers, not just portrait photographers, not just wildlife photographers, it's everything, including drone photographers are in PPA. And I've been a member of PPA for quite some time. And I definitely recommend that you do it. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But man, for their insurance alone, it's worth the cost. It's only $300 and change per year. You could also do the monthly option, which is, I think, $30, $25, $30, $35 a month. So either way, it is a good, amazingly good deal. And there's a lot of education there. Plus, they have lots of different workshops and things throughout the year that you can participate in. They have the biggest of the trade shows called Imaging USA. And the next one is going to be in January 2022 in Washington, D.C., I believe. And so, man, huge event. But they've got all different kinds of things, PPA. Now, there's the local affiliate groups. If you're in the one I've listed here is PPSA, for Professional Photographers of San Antonio. PPA, Professional Photographers of America, has lots of affiliate groups. And so I recommend joining the one that's in your area. the one that's in your area, not the one that's in my area if you don't live in my area, but the one that's in your area. And then the state group as well. So I'm in Texas, so therefore Texas Professional Photographers Association, TPPA. Definitely recommend joining the national, it's actually international, but the national, the local, and the state, all three. And then just a local club that's in your area. So we have a club, Landers Photography School has a club called Photo SA, and we've been doing this since 2006. We bring in speakers, and the majority of them are local, but since we've been doing it via Zoom because of COVID, we're going to go back to doing it in person here in a few months, but we've been doing it via Zoom, so we're able to get speakers from all over. We're not limited to the area, but for the most part, it's been local speakers, and they're just talking about whatever it is they're passionate about. They're sharing their thoughts and the tools, the secrets that they have that have caused what they do to work. And they're sharing those things with us so we can gain from that. We can grow as a group and be around other people who want to grow in photography. And so I recommend a local camera club in addition to the professional groups. So the one, if you're in San Antonio area, that I recommend Photo SA. And it's very inexpensive, $29 annual, $10 a meeting. And it's voluntary. If someone doesn't want to pay that, they don't have to. If they forget, so what? It's not about the money. It's about pulling people together who enjoy photography. And if the amount of those $10 donations per meeting doesn't cover the cost, no problem. I'll take care of it. And it almost never does. So I take care of it every time. But still, that's not the point. The point is bringing photographers together, like-minded people who want to grow in photography. So I recommend putting yourself into situations like that. So that's why I have it on the list. Join a local photography group. And by the way, if you have the handout, you can see some footnotes, and it's just additional information about why I have those things listed and about what they are, who they are. Next one on my list, next category is continuing expenses. Continuing expenses. So business insurance. Hopefully I don't have to go into why you need business insurance, but you need business insurance. If you're a professional photographer, you need business insurance. You need liability, you need equipment reimbursement. By the way, the insurance that comes with PPA, Professional Photographers of America, actually includes some of this, but you need more. You need some more. So a regular business insurance policy. I use the Hartford. You use whatever you feel is best for you. But business insurance, it's relatively inexpensive. It's surprisingly inexpensive. But you definitely want to have that. There's so many things that you could run into that this will save you. I use my business insurance. I make claims very rarely. I think I've made one claim, maybe two, but I can only remember one. But someone stole a ton of stuff. Now, I have a ton of stuff, so it actually didn't harm my ability to do business. But someone stole $17,000 worth of stuff, and guess what my business insurance does? They replace the stuff. Now they do it at you can get this at full value, and you can get it at depreciated value. And by the way, they're going to quote you on the depreciated value. So I got the depreciated value, which was probably 10,000, but still, I wouldn't have any of it if it wasn't for the insurance. So hopefully that never happens to you. But man, get that insurance. At least look into it. And I recommend that you have an accountant. You're the expert on photography, not the expert on bookkeeping, not the expert on taxes. Get an accountant. By the way, Leah, that dog is really cute. Who is that?
Sorry, she's she wants inside, but her name is, we call her Beebs, or like Bubbies. Schwubby
Yeah.
Bear. She's a healer pointer mix. Sorry.
Aw.
When she wants inside, because we're in my garage and it is warmer out here, so she gets tired of it. When she wants inside, she gets in my face.
Gotcha. I have a husky who is sitting right over there, or laying down, totally just out. But
Oh.
every once in a while, he'll bark while I'm doing these classes and let himself be known. And I'm at the kitchen table. I'm doing this from home. I'm at the kitchen table, and I have the chairs over on the side to block his ability to get to me, because
Oh.
otherwise he would come visit and be part of this this lesson.
Nice.
He's a good dog. He's a big husky. He's 80 pounds. So
Yeah, that's
he's
huge.
big for a husky. All right, back to continuing expenses. So a business coach, again, I know that not everybody feels they need that. So don't put anything in that space if you don't feel you need that. But having a business coach makes a difference to your business. Business coaches way more than pay for themselves. Now, how much do business coaches cost? They can be incredibly expensive. They're humans, they're people, and people are more expensive than things, and they should be. We should value humans more than we value things. If you're thinking, that's more than a TV would cost, or that's more than a camera would cost, they're people. You should value them more than the things you have. They're people. So yeah, business coach is going to be expensive. How much? It depends on how much time you're going to be needing. So you may be able to find them for $500 a month, but it may be $1,000 or $5,000 a month. It gets expensive, but maybe you start off with a small number of hours, and every once in a while, and so you start off really low, maybe $300 a month. You don't know what you're going to find, but having a business coach really will make a huge impact on your business. Find someone who's at least experienced what you want to experience, so that they can share that experience with you. They are so worth it. Leah, did you raise your hand?
I did. So I wanted to go back. I did have a question on the accountant thing, because I'm new to starting businesses and whatnot. So I wasn't sure, when you're starting a business, photography business, is it better to go out and just start building a clientele, start making money, and then go find an accountant? Or should you talk to an accountant, actually create the business, and then start pulling in clients? Which is a better way to go?
Leah, for most of us, we're going to have to get the business so that we have the money to be able to afford it. That's what, that's just the reality for most situations. Ideally, we would start off with all the things in place that we need, but most of us can't start off that way. And I totally get it. That's just how it is. I didn't start off that way. So, I didn't have anyone on the legal side. I didn't have anyone on the accountant side. I didn't have any people, but you need people. So that's what you work towards. And so most of us are going to get some jobs. We're going to purposefully set aside some money for these things that we know we're going to need, because we planned for it. By the way, if we don't plan for it, we don't know we need it. So therefore, we don't do anything to help ourselves in that area. And so planning is key. It's huge in making your business successful. So we plan, we know we're going to need these things. So we set aside some money for these particular things that we know we're going to need. So definitely someone, a bookkeeper, an accountant, a CPA, somebody to at least check the work that you do. But I recommend at some point that you not do certain things, that you outsource certain things. Bookkeeping is one of them. Now, if you've got a really small part-time thing and you can easily keep up with it and you're good with that kind of thing, fine. But at least have someone check your work, like a CPA, once you're ready to send your forms in. But just a regular, let's say a portrait photography business that's full-time, you've got clients coming in regularly, don't mess with these kind of things. Let someone else, a pro, deal with it. This is not your area of expertise. Your likelihood of making mistakes is higher than it would be for the pro who does it as their full-time income. Let them do that. You do your thing. You can't be all the tools in the tool store. So be the tools that you are.
Okay. Are there different, this is probably just lack of knowledge, but are there different accountants for different categories of business, or are there just accountants that specialize in business? So are there accountants that are photography accountants? basically? Like they specialize in photography businesses, or they just specialize in business?
Usually, well, occasionally you'll find some that target photographers. For the most part, they target smaller businesses.
Okay.
And so that's generally the direction you're heading. But yeah, you will find some that work with a lot of photographers, and they may be a good way for you to go. But you'll definitely want to talk with them. You don't necessarily need to meet them in person, but you definitely want to visit with them. You want to talk with them over the phone, over a Zoom call, and listen to what it is they're saying. They're going to give some free advice. Listen to that, take that in. Make sure you can work with them as far as personality wise. There's some people who just rub a creative wrong. We're kind of weirdly sensitive in some ways, and so some people rub us wrong, and we don't. That just because we need something does not mean we should accept that.
That makes sense. So go for what best fits me is what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking. All right, so that's the accountant side, business coach, photography education. Clearly, I'm going to recommend photography education because that's what I do. But I recommend it. I mean, some of you may know I have a degree in photography. I think that's a waste of time. Please don't go that route. Not because the photography teachers at a college or university don't know their stuff and don't care about their students. It's not that, because they absolutely do care about that stuff. They do know their stuff. They do care about you. They're hardworking, passionate, loving people. But the majority of teachers who teach photography have never earned their income with photography. So they haven't experienced what it is that you need to experience. Out of the 7 teachers I had when I was in college, not a single one had ever been a photographer. Not one. Now, I'm defining a photographer as someone who earns their living that way. So they were preparing us for being full-time photographers, yet none of them had ever been that. That doesn't mean they weren't good people, because they were fantastic. I loved them. I didn't realize it wasn't a good thing until years later. It doesn't change my opinion of the teachers that I had. They're wonderful. But by my definition, I would not have hired them. But by the definition of college and university, for some reason, they're missing the reality side. And that's when a photographer leaves, they have to start a business. There's very few photography jobs. They have to start a business. So therefore, shouldn't the teachers have some experience in what it is they're preparing you to do? So for that reason, I don't recommend going to college, university or college for photography. Go for business. Go for something else if you feel that that's the right path for you. But for a lot of photographers, it just simply isn't the right path. Photography education is. Going to PPA, joining PPA, you get a whole lot of education. That's a really good thing. If you have questions you need answers to, Googling it or going to YouTube. Fantastic is YouTube. If you've got a question. Now, there's been situations where you have been in a situation, someone says, do you have any questions? And your thought was, well, I don't know enough about the subject to even ask a question. So therefore, we've been in a lot of situations where we just don't know what we don't know. So therefore, how can we ask a question of a subject we don't know anything about? Well, we can't. So that's the downside of YouTube, is you can't ask a question you don't have because you don't know enough about the subject yet. But YouTube is great for secondary education. When you do have a question, you can get the question answered on YouTube a lot of times, and usually good answers. Yeah, occasionally there's not, but usually pretty good stuff. But a primary source of education, your main source, needs to come from photography education, because that way you get to be exposed to things you didn't even know you didn't know. So continuing education, I think that should be on your list. That's a continuing expense. Now, how much do you want to put towards that? Totally up to you. Up until 2 years ago, I had $600 in my photography budget per month. My photography education budget. That's how much I spent on photography education. Now, I know that's a lot. I think most people don't do that. but that's how much I had in mind. That's what I did. Next thing, marketing and advertising is a continuing expense. Now I've listed a couple of things here, but you're going to have a whole lot more. But business cards, takeaway cards, and I've listed what that is in the footnotes, so you can look down at that. I think everybody has the handout. I'll zoom down a little bit so you can see that better. There we go. Business cards. I still feel they're an essential tool. When you're in a social situation, business card is often something that's handed out. But we also have takeaway cards and or an info card or whatever it is you want to call it. But this is a large business card effectively, but it gives you more space to put information on. So more photographs, testimonials, and what it is you want them to do next in order to do business with you. I recommend having those even more than I recommend having business cards, although I think both are appropriate. If you're going to have a display, an exhibit, then having these takeaway cards sitting next to your exhibit is much more appropriate than a business card. It has more information, and they're less likely to throw it away or lose it. So that's business cards, takeaway cards. Now, of course, you also have, as far as marketing and advertising, online marketing and advertising. So you've got online ads, you could have Facebook ads, you could have Google ads. I recommend that your marketing and advertising budget is about 7% of what you want to gross in your business, meaning the total amount of income that your business makes, not the total amount of take home, the total amount that your business makes. And so let's say that you want to bring in a total amount of $200,000. Now we've got to take out expenses and we have to take out taxes. And so the amount you get is not 200,000, but let's say your total gross income before all your expenses, before all your taxes is 200,000. Then 7% of that is 14,000. That is your budget. So a little over $1,000 a month. That's what you would put towards. I recommend 7% towards your marketing budget. So it could be Facebook ads, it could be print ads. By the way, print ads like in magazines and such, I have done that so many times over the years, and I haven't had a single time where it even broke even, meaning that I made the amount that I spent on the ad. So I don't recommend print ads for photographers. I'm sure there's an example where it works. I'm sure it has to exist, right? But I never found it. What do you guys feel about that 7% towards your marketing and advertising budget? You guys have a thought or opinion on that one?
To me, that sounds right, but I have a question is, do these Facebook ads and Google ads really work? I don't know. I've never done them before, but do they work?
Okay. The simple answer is yes. However, if not done in the way that causes it to work for you, in other words, not right, but not right is you. If it doesn't work for you, then it's not going to feel that way. And so are there photographers and other industries who put out Facebook and Google ads and don't have a return on that investment? Absolutely, that exists. But there's others who do very well with it. There's some photographers out there that do no marketing and advertising at all, and they do great. Probably because they're doing it a different way. But for those who choose to do it with ads, and if they're doing it right, they are doing probably 3 times minimum what it is that they're putting in. So if they're putting in $100 in ads, they're getting $300 return, if not more. In fact, much more in most instances. So, but there's the doing it right part of that equation. So your general question of does it work? Yes. Yeah. Does it work always? Heck no. No freaking way. I did an ad in a class one time several years ago. So Steve, you might find this interesting. I think Francis would find it interesting too. But several years ago, this thought came up in class. And so we just carried it through. And so we came up with this weird concept, really kind of silly concept. And we called it Mr. Lander's models. Am I Do you get why I'm calling it silly? And so what we did was we were thinking, all right, we could form this business idea about kids who between 6 and 16 who are having this thought in their mind that they want to be a model, and or mom wants them to consider being a model. And so this would be just a model experience. We wouldn't be connected to a talent agency of any kind. We would just be ourselves, and we'd give them this model experience just so they could see if they like it. They can have some cool photographs as a result, whether they did or didn't. And so we targeted moms who thought that would be cool. And so this was just in class. We were being silly, and we put an ad up, and we only put $5 on the ad, whatever the minimum was. I think it was $5. It could have been more, but I think it was only $5. And I had to actually turn the ad off because of how much business it got, because we weren't actually going to be doing this. It was just silliness in class. I mean, silliness, but with, we were being serious, but we were being silly. We actually got business, and I actually photographed 2 of them for the next class just to have fun. And the parents bought. And so I was thinking, wow, this silly idea could actually be something real. Someone could take that. No one's done it. I haven't seen anybody do that. But I think it actually could be a real business. I think people could make money doing that. Totally. We were just being silly though. It was just, the thought came up in class, and I said, well, let's do it. And it worked. But there's other times where Steve is just not going to. So it depends. Yeah, good question. Francis, were you saying something too?
No, I just thought, we come up with a lot of ideas in class.
Yeah. It's kind of fun to have those conversations. And most of the time they're just conversations, because you don't really you've got the material planned, exactly what's going to happen in class. And so there's not time to go off on that big of a tangent, but yeah, that happened. Any other thoughts on that?
So regarding the Google ads and the Facebook ads and stuff, I have an online business that is like not photography related at all. And
yeah,
there is a formula to doing it correctly that they teach that you can actually watch on YouTube for free, just like learning new things about photography. So if that's something that you're unsure about, when I started doing it, I was super scared, because you do invest money and you don't know if you're going to get a return. It's like playing the lottery sometimes, but there's an algorithm and a trick to it. So when you go on YouTube, it'll help you be a little more familiar with it, a little bit more comfortable with it. It might give you more confidence going into it, but I highly recommend doing those if you want to expand any business venture. It will grow it exponentially if you do it right. That's the other catch. Do it right. Like you said. And it takes time to figure out. So you just got to keep believing in yourself too,
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. All right. So retouching. Now, there's a lot of things that I recommend that you outsource. You already heard about accounting and business advisor or business coach, but I also recommend a retoucher. I have a retoucher for the purpose of doing what I call base artwork. I do specific artwork, but I have someone do my base. I don't think it's worth my time. By the way, in other classes, you're going to hear me say you need to find out what your time's worth. That way you can make an educated choice on whether to outsource or whether to do it yourself. A lot of times outsourcing it is just ridiculously inexpensive compared to you doing it yourself. But until you know how much you're worth, you can't actually do that. You can't find out that. So you just kind of do it yourself. And at first, when you don't have any income, you wear all the different hats. I get it. Me too. But one of those things that I definitely recommend outsourcing is the base retouching. So I have them get rid of the flyaway hairs, the redness in the eyes, and just pimples, those kind of things. I have someone else take care of that for me, because it's just not worth my time, and it is so inexpensive. Retouchup.com is one I use most of the time, and you see that on your handout. But I do recognize it is nearly impossible to estimate this. And so in that price area, next to it. I don't anticipate you're actually putting an amount there yet, but I at least want it on your radar screen. I want you knowing about different things that you could outsource. So this most likely will be left blank because you just don't know how much it's going to cost you per month, per year. You just don't know those variables. So I get it. Next thing is the non-photography equipment. Some of this is going to be really obvious, but your computer, the keyboard, the mouse, the laptop, these cost a lot, and they need to be replaced every once in a while. And so put down the price of what it's going to cost to get the computer that is the right computer for what it is you do. Not the cheapest one you can find, the one that's the right one for what you can do. Not one you can just get by with, the right one for what you need to do. Put that price there. Same thing with the monitor. Get a good monitor. Don't get the cheap one, and don't get the gaming monitors. Gaming monitors are great for games. They are awful for photographers. They're too contrasted, they're too bright, they're too vibrant. You may be able to watch a movie on one, but it doesn't reproduce. See, your goal is to make it look like it's going to look when it's printed. And you're not going to get that with a gaming computer. Too bright, too vivid. So a good photography monitor, and then put the price there. How much are those? On the cheap end, $400. On the expensive end, you're talking $2,000-$3,000 and up. So I'd say start off with that $400 version. It's good enough. It's plenty good enough. A monitor calibration tool, unless you're familiar with it, you have no idea what this even is. Monitors are not the same. Your work on someone else's computer likely looks different than it does on yours. Dang it. But you at least want it to look right on yours. So a monitor calibration tool is going to help you do that. A laptop, if you've got a desktop, why do you need a laptop? You need both. A desktop is now if you're starting off, then the laptop's what you want. But having a desktop, more power, more options, more variables. I mean, there's just it's a better overall experience, and monitors are better for the desktops anyway. Yes, you can connect any monitor to a laptop, so maybe that's the route that you go. But a laptop, I've got both. A desktop, I'm talking to you via my desktop, but I've got a laptop, and it's for when I'm on assignment, when I'm out showing my work. So that's what its purpose is. So I want it to be really good, almost as good as my desktop. So put that price there. External hard drive. I mentioned this before. This is a NAS. I use a NAS, a network accessible storage. Mine has four terabyte hard drives in it. And once I fill that up, I'll have to go up to 8, but still. And that's so, yes, that's a total of 16 terabytes, but it's redundant. So it's 4. And each one of them has the exact same information on it. That way, when one goes out, I pull it out and I put a new one in, and it repopulates that information on there. So if a hard drive fails, and by the way, I have had a hard drive fail on my NAS, and I couldn't care any less. It doesn't matter. There's 3 more. They'd all have to fail before I lost it. What's the odds of that? 4 hard drives failing at the same time. Is it possible? Actually, it is, because of power surges. So it is possible. So I've got power surge, and I didn't realize I didn't write power surge stuff on there. So I have a battery backup, which will run my computer for about half an hour without any connection to power, so that I can turn everything off and save everything is really its purpose. But I also have, and that is a surge protector, but then I have a surge protector in front of it also. So just in case. By the way, some power comes in from a different way. And so surge protectors are not 100%. So that's why I also recommend cloud backup. So I think you have to have local backup and cloud backup both. The next thing I have listed here is an ARC board, such as a Wacom board. There are other brands, but Wacom's the standard. And this is something in addition to your keyboard and mouse that you can use in order to do your retouching. Very cool tool. Definitely takes some getting used to. It's so different from a mouse. It's more like a pen though. So cool tool, artboard, a webcam so that you can do what we're doing here. So you guys apparently already have one, or I wouldn't be able to see you. But you need some kind of a webcam, and you can get the cheap $25 version, sure. But are you going to be meeting clients on it? So maybe you want to get the Logitech Brio like I have, or a even better. So all webcams are not that great. They're good enough. They do their job. But if you want something even higher quality, then a webcam isn't the right tool. It's a regular camera. So probably the camera that you have is the right tool for that, but you don't necessarily want to dedicate it for that purpose. So maybe you have another camera that you dedicate towards that. Maybe not. A late model cell phone with a camera, I think you need that. You need to be able to communicate, get back and forth, text and all that, and that doesn't need it. But the having a good quality camera, you're going to do a lot of your marketing with your own stuff. And so I do marketing with my cell phone. If I'm out on a teaching photography, I did this last week. I don't do this very often, but I think I should do it more often. And I think you guys should do this. But one cool marketing tool is show where you're at, talk about it. So last week I was teaching a shutter speeds class in front of some waterfalls in front of the Bass Pro Shop. And the left side of the Bass Pro Shop, there's waterfalls outside in the parking lot. Really cool. If you haven't been there, I recommend. And if you're not in San Antonio, there's Bass Pro Shops. I don't know. There's a bunch of them throughout the U.S. And I think they all have these waterfalls in the parking lot. But anyway, this one does. And so I'm out there teaching the class, and after it was a private class. So after she left, I was in my car and I was thinking, you know what, I need to do some marketing. So I walked back out to the waterfall, and I just real briefly said what I was doing, but I'm doing this with my cell phone, immediately uploaded to Facebook. And so now I've got a quick marketing tool. I recommend that you guys do this. And a cell phone is an easy way to do that. Wireless earbuds, just to make your life easier. I have both the wired kind and the wireless. That's what that is. In fact, I'm doing this from wireless earbuds. This is the Jabra is the brand. Jabra, Jabra. And this is the 75S, which is really good, but not perfect. But it's really good. I like them. And they're not cheap. So that's wireless earbuds. The next one is something to hold your phone in the car. Just place it, something that holds it, a cell phone stand and a charger. So I have mine charging in the car. My stand has a charger in it. And my cell phone, well, I guess you can't tell from looking at it, but you put it up against that power source and it's powering. I don't have to plug it in order to get power. So I definitely recommend that if you can do that. I definitely recommend a ladder if you're a portrait photographer and other types of photography, a 2-step or a 3-step, whatever fits in your car. Emergency kit, stuff happens. Have an emergency kit with you. A flashlight or several. Reading glasses if you need them. By the way, if you don't need them now, you'll need them at some point. All right, next category. And this is our last category, and that's consumables. Packaging. This is for your prints. So boxes, bags, ribbons, etc. I get mine from TyndallPhotographic.com. They aren't the only source for that, but that's where I get mine. And I have for years, for a very long time. TyndallPhotographic.com. Reliable transportation, of course, with auto insurance. Yeah, you need insurance. Gaffer's tape. I love Gaffer's tape. It works so well. It tears well. It doesn't leave a sticky residue. Gaffer's tape, not duct tape. Don't use duct tape. That leaves a sticky residue, especially if you leave it on for a while. No, Gaffer's tape. Costs a little bit more. It's totally worth it. Wipes, hand sanitizer spray. Yeah, got to keep things clean, including your hands. Logo stickers. I have them on my equipment, but I also have them on my packaging. So you can go to moo.com or psprint.com or vistaprint.com to get logos, stickers, and other things. And I'm kind of being silly because, you know, when people talk about this last one, when people talk about the things that cost a photographer money, they always include gas. Well, gas is like nothing compared to all the other stuff that we've been talking about. And so I'm being silly when I said, oh yeah, and a little bit goes towards gas for your car. Yeah, okay, I get it. But that's a minor expense. But I find it fascinating when people talk about what expenses, what does it cost for a photographer? They're talking about really small things like you'll notice something that's not on here. If you print your work, where do you see anything about the lab on this list? Lab's not on the list. It's such a small, tiny part. Is it important? Yes. And if you do, if you specialize in printing, you need to have that listed here. You need to have it. It's an expense. It's important. But you know, as a photographer, you're not a reseller for the lab. It's not paper that you sell. That's what the lab sells. You sell the whole creation. From the moment the project started, planning, all the things that went into it, to the session itself, and then the post-production work, and then showing the photographs, and then finally getting to the point where you print them, small little sliver in the overall process. Then you get those prints back, you package them. I sign them in gold, and then deliver. I deliver. I don't send it. I deliver. I go to them and deliver. And if it's wall prints, which most of the time it is, I install also. So that's what I sell. The printing part was one little sliver of it, an incredibly important sliver, but my price isn't based on it. I mean, it'd be like saying that the Toyota Motor Company is basing their price of their Toyota Corolla on the bolt that holds the 5 bolts that hold the tire on. No, that's an expense, but they shouldn't be basing their pricing on a sliver of all the expenses and all the time that's been put into it. You're a photographer. You're charging for the creative process. The lab just prints, an incredibly important part of that process, but so is every other part. So, you know, one of the sponsors for this show, the Portrait Profit Show, is Digital Pro Lab. They're an important part of the process. It's small relative to all the things you do, but an important part. So if you do printing, and if you're a portrait photographer, you should. I mean, that's called completing your work, not making your client complete the work for you. I don't know, that in my book, that's kind of mean. Yes, they may ask for it, but how many times when the roofer comes around, does the client say, you know, I know how to use a hammer. How about if you just take the old roof off and give me the new shingles and I'll take care of it? That doesn't happen. There's too much integrity going on. There's too much at stake going on. I'm thinking photography is a little bit more important than the roof. Maybe you don't agree with that. I do. Family portrait, way more important. Roof is important. Family portrait, family, representation of the love of the family, I'm placing it higher than the nails and the shingles. I just do. So therefore, in my opinion, portrait photographers oftentimes don't complete the work, and I really think they should. Now, again, I know clients will say, well, all I want's the digital files. Again, it's the same thing as the client saying, all I want is the shingles and I'll put them up myself. It doesn't happen in that industry, and that's not even art. So I don't recommend it happening in ours. You do what's best for you, though. All right. I want you to total all that stuff up. I want you to know your totals. What things do you have and still need to purchase? I want that total there, because that total gives you an idea of what all is that it costs to be in photography. What's the investment? This number is going to be large. It is. There's a lot of things you can and should, maybe not initially, but should at some point purchase. What's the total there? And I want this broken up. What do you still need to purchase? What monthly, how much are the monthly items that you have to pay for? There's some things that are monthly subscription. Like if you get the Adobe package bundle of Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom, it's $10 a month, cheap. And a lot of things are a lot more expensive. Like you have business software that's going to be 50, 60, 100, could be a lot more than that per month. And other things are going to be even more. The annual items, those things that you only pay once a year, add those things up. I want you to be aware. I want you to know these are pieces and parts of coming up with your prices. At some point, your camera is going to break down. A photographer called me a while back. It's been a number of years now, but she called and she said, I am busy. I've been busy. I have more business than I can handle. And in fact, I turned some people away because I just don't have time for them on my schedule. But I have a problem that doesn't seem possible. I don't have enough money in the bank to replace my camera that has been used so much that it won't create images anymore. That wasn't her words, but you understand what I'm saying. It wasn't able to do what she needed to do. She needed to replace it, and she didn't have enough money to replace it, even though she was incredibly busy. What does that say? It says that her prices were too low, which is a problem a lot of photographers have. But it's because she didn't know her numbers. She didn't know what it took to be in business. She's like most of us, and we go by feeling. We're creatives. Feelings are what we go to. By the way, creatives, we can't always do that. And we know it. We just don't know always when we're supposed to apply that knowledge. Well, business is one of them. Know your numbers. The numbers will tell you what you're supposed to do. If you're not sure what you're supposed to do, it's because you don't know enough about your numbers. You haven't planned enough. Maybe you've planned a little, but if you're not sure what you're supposed to do, it means you haven't planned enough. That's the bottom line. Those moments when you're like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do next. Well, plan. Get back to the planning. It's not done yet. Your plan tells you what to do. Knowing your value, knowing how much you're worth, tells you whether you can make a decision on whether you need to outsource this or whether you need to do it yourself. All this stuff is very simple if it's done right. If it's done right. Kind of like the conversation we had a little while ago about the Facebook ads. If it's done right, it works. If your planning is correct, it works. You build systems into your business and work those systems. Tweak them as you need to, but use those systems. The system works. Do it. Don't allow everything to be based on how you feel about it. When it comes to price, how you feel is almost always wrong. Almost always wrong. And that's why so many photographers have such a low price, because they feel like that's what it's worth, or that's what they feel like they'd pay for it. Well, guess what? You're a do-it-yourselfer. Do-it-yourselfers don't pay big bucks because they do it themselves. So therefore, you're a poor example of someone who you're trying to do business with. So you can't base those decisions on how you feel, because you are wrong. You're not after you. You're not after do-it-yourselfers. But your numbers, your planning will tell you what's right. Other people can't. It's not possible. They may answer the question, but they can't know your situation. They can't know your goals. They can't know your end result. Plan the end result. Know who you are. Know who you want to work with, and plan a path to get those things. How do you guys feel about that? I see some thumbs up. I like seeing thumbs up. Let's see. I'm looking at the chat. Yes, I use for my NAS. I'm going to put that in the chat so you know. But I use a product called QNAP. And by the way, if you read about them, they just had a security breach, but they've solved it. They've been a good, strong company. I think all companies are targeted, and so that could cause a person not to want to use them. But I think all companies are targeted at some point. So QNAP fixed the problem quickly, really. And I still recommend them. So QNAP, QNAP, QNAP. And I'm looking to see if it says anything else on it. No, I don't know what QNAP stands for, but that's the brand I use, is for my NAS, my network accessible storage. QNAP. That has four 4 terabyte hard drives in it. And let's see. Access to locations, I think, is what Eileen is asking about. Uh, are we talking about the adding that to our budget? Because yeah, some places do have a cost for working there, and that's something you definitely want to consider is the the cost of those things. So lots of locations have a cost associated with working there, or at least some kind of a permit. And some of them are free, some of them have cost. Is it? Yeah. So those are case by case basis. So I don't know if I would include something like that in my budget. However, if you are working at a, if you're doing a mini session series, like you're doing 15 families or 15 models or whatever it is at a certain location that has a cost, I would absolutely, of course, include that in the budget when I'm figuring out what all my costs are, what all my variables are, those that have costs and those that don't. I'm going to include that kind of thing. Who do you talk to on those? There's always a contact. And you may have to do a little bit of research, but there's always a contact person to be able to find. Sometimes it's very formalized, sometimes it's not. Like there's a place that I don't know if they still do it this way, but you just pay the security guard. The security guard would come by and say that, we charge for this, and you'd hand them the $25 or whatever it is for that kind of thing. So it's odd sometimes, it's weird sometimes, but most of the time it's pretty formalized. Where you go online, you kind of like get a reservation. I don't know that it's called that. In some instances it may be. And there's other times when you have to rent the place. You've got to get the entire place. Maybe like I've, man, it was a while back, but I wanted to do something. It wasn't a need. It wasn't a client, but I got up on top of one of the buildings in downtown San Antonio, but I had to get access. I had to talk to a person. They had to escort me up there because they don't let anybody go up there. But I just asked, and they seemed happy to allow me to do that. So I got to see some things that I guess most people don't get to see. And this building was pretty old. It was built in 1929. And so it's kind of fun getting up on top of it and seeing the view from up there. So yeah, case by case basis. So I don't think I'd add any of that to my overall budget, the thing we're talking about now, the total amount you spend. But as far as particular budgets, absolutely, I'm going to add those things into it. Yeah. Thanks. All right. So I have a, you guys might have seen this on the bottom of the handout, but a final thought on this, and then I'll have a final thought for the Portrait Profit Show. But a final thought on this particular purchase considerations for professional photographers. This is a quote from one of our other teachers who has moved, so he's not really teaching much anymore, but he's moved from the area. So, but still, I consider him one of my teachers, a good friend, good guy. But final thought, and he said this: "You're a professional, behave like one." I understand you're going to want to skip things. Maybe you can skip some, but others, like paying taxes, insurance, keeping track of everything, although they can be time consuming and a pain. Failing to do these things will keep you from progressing efficiently along your path. You only harm yourself and your business. So that's my opinion of what he's going to say next. He says, and I say in the words of philosopher and photographer John Signs, don't run your business like an amateur. So I think that's a good ending for the purchase considerations for professional photographers. Now, before I bring this to a close, I guess there's a couple of things I want to make sure you're aware of. You're welcome, Eileen. Thank you. I mentioned earlier that there is a free class on Wednesday about night photography. So I'd use that link that I gave you guys earlier to get more information on that. There is also a low light class on Thursday at 4 p.m. So go to finerworks.com for that one. but that's low light photography. And I have a getting to know your camera class on Thursday morning, and go to landersphotoschool.com for that. Landers Photo School. So any other thoughts or questions before? Francis, that's all of these that I mentioned are via Zoom. There is a, Francis, you're in a class that's in person on Thursday evening. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that one's in person, but these four that I mentioned, they're all via Zoom. So you can be anywhere as long as you have an internet connection and be able to see that.
It's hilarious that you say that there's a Get to Know Your Camera Better class on Thursday, because I just bought my next camera last week and it's supposed to be in this week. And so I'm like, oh, that could be good timing.
Yeah, that would be.
I have to get to know it. So that's so
be.
funny.
Well, the topic for next week on Monday, the Portrait Profit Show, is plan your 2022 today. I definitely recommend that you plan your year well in advance, because it just takes time to put everything together. So plan your 2022 today is what we're going to do next week. And let's see. I think that's all I have prepared for you, unless you have any other questions, and I'll do. If not, then I'm going to do my outro. No? All right, cool. For Landers Photography School and Digital Pro Lab, this is Jim Landers, bringing you the weekly Portrait Profit Show, giving you evolving content, awareness, and even fun to the business side of photography. We provide helpful information, step-by-step processes, how-to articles, and action steps that will help you with the struggles you deal with now, so you are constantly realigned to the path that leads to the success you deserve. Thank you guys for being here today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.